safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
I try to be an emotional compass and point you in the right direction.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you. My guest today is used to being in front of the camera reporting the headlines, but has actually found herself in the news in a big way during this past year. Megyn Kelly, the anchor of the top-rated Fox cable news channel show, The Kelly File, caught national attention when she moderated the first Republican primary debate on Fox News Channel last August and started a firestorm nationwide after she faced off with then nominee Donald Trump. Take a look.
You may have heard that there was a dust-up involving yours truly and presidential contender Donald Trump.
The firestorm over...
Megyn Kelly is reportedly claiming
He felt attacked. It wasn't an attack.
I'm not a fan of Megyn Kelly. I don't like her.
I'm a big girl. I can take it. The moment of truth has arrived. Welcome to the first debate night. You call women you don't like dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals.
What I say is what I say. And honestly, Megyn, if you don't like it...
There was an immediate backlash. Trump was furious with Kelly.
Mr. Trump did interviews over the weekend that attacked me personally.
She's got blood coming out of her eyes. I don't have a lot of respect for Megyn Kelly. She's a lightweight. You know, you can see there was blood coming out of her eyes. Blood coming out of her wherever.
Fox released this statement. We're very surprised he's willing to show that much fear about being questioned by Megyn Kelly.
I'll continue doing my job without fear or favor.
What happened between us then and after would make headlines around the globe. For those 9 long months, he and I did not speak.
You seem to stay angry for months.
I don't say, oh, gee, I'm angry tonight, but tomorrow you're my best friend. When you and I were having our little difficulty, you probably had some pretty nasty tweets sent your way.
Bimbo?
Well, there was a retweet, yeah. Did I say that?
Many times.
Ooh, okay. Excuse me. Over your life, Megyn, you've been called a lot worse. Is that right? Wouldn't you say?
It's not about me. It's about the messaging to young girls and to
but again,
other women.
It's a modern-day form of fighting back.
Mr. Trump, it's been fascinating.
Megyn Kelly wore a spaghetti-strapped top while reporting on the Republican National Convention.
There's been a lot of bad blood.
Tweets on the matter included, hard to take your coverage seriously when Megyn Kelly looks like she's working for an escort agency.
You've become part of the story, too.
That's been unfortunate.
You gotta like being on the cover of Vanity Fair.
Yes, I mean, listen, I would be lying if I said it wasn't cool to see myself on the cover of Vanity Fair. What am I doing there? This is bizarre.
Days before the presidential election, Megyn was back in the news again with headlines plastered all over after her memoir titled Settle for More was leaked online with stories about her relationship with former chairman and CEO of Fox News and Fox television station Roger Ailes. What does she say he did to her when he allegedly sexually harassed her? Plus, now that the drama leading up to the election is over, what does Megyn claim about Trump's alleged behavior before the start of the campaign season? You've heard the buzz about her new book, and you'll get the answers to these questions and more when Megyn sits down with me in an exclusive one-on-one interview today. We'll meet her in a few minutes, but first, Megyn's hard work and ability to ask the tough questions to high-profile people pushed her up the ranks at Fox, made her a role model for female empowerment, and a hit on social media. Always on the move, Megyn invited us behind the scenes of the Kelly File so we could follow a typical day in her life.
And I usually get into Fox News, sometime between 3 and 4. Although I've been on the phone all day with my executive producer and my team.
Oh, God, how far down that rabbit hole do we want to go?
Going over the headlines, deciding what the lead is going to be, deciding the rundown.
Doesn't add anything to the story.
No, they might still be looking in the archives for some other material.
All right, well, if they get some news, then we'll talk.
Love that.
And then usually by 9 p.m. we've entirely thrown that out and started over.
Hello. Hello. Hi, beautiful.
What's happening? And the ultimate show looks almost nothing like what we thought it was going to look like at 3:30. But that's the fun of being live. All right, let's have a good show.
4, 3.
Breaking tonight, a stunning revelation from the latest WikiLeaks document dump. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly.
We call it rolling thunder when big news breaks and you just throw everything out and just go. And it's thrilling. Check it out. Okay, so who do we have tomorrow? What do we have going on?
So we have Chris Starwell, Dana Perino, Bill Bennett.
I would never have believed I would wind up this happy and doing a job that I love this much. 15 years ago, I was a very unhappy lawyer. On paper, I felt that I was succeeding. I think most people by American standards would say, yes, great, nailed it. I had my doctor husband, high-powered law job. Good, you're good. And I would get home on an early night around midnight. And the midnight repeat of Oprah was always on.
People end up sort of living their whole life under a mask.
It was Dr. Phil Tuesdays.
Tell people what they want to hear, because they might not like you if you don't.
And Dr. Phil said something that I would never forget and that would change my life forever. The only difference between you and someone you envy is you settled for less. And it hit me like a lightning bolt. I resolved right then and there in that moment that I could settle for more. So I've recently written a book, and it's called Settle for More. I hope that people will read the book and feel empowered to change their lives by making different decisions and choices. I hope they think, if she could do it, I can do it too. Whether they want a TV job or they want false eyelashes, these are my reals, but later I'll get the falsies. Or whatever they want in their own lives. I hope they feel empowered to at least try for it, at least pick up the bat and swing.
Well, Megyn is certainly keeping busy. In addition to being a news anchor, wife, and mother, she can now add author to the list. Her much-anticipated memoir, Settle for More, is officially being released online and in bookstores today. So please welcome my good friend, Megyn Kelly.
This is so exciting.
Yeah?
I love Dr. Phil. I love him as much as all of you love him, and I've been watching him for years, and it's so bizarre and great to be here.
Yeah, so did you ever think we'd be sitting on the same stage together?
No. No, and this is, for me, this is so special because it's full circle. You know, it's like from the moment I was in Chicago, unhappy, and watching you on TV, just like millions of people are doing this moment.
Right.
To finding myself here in this chair across from you because I did change my life.
Yeah, you've made a huge change. You've written a book, and we're going to talk about it today. It's Settle for More, Megyn Kelly. And this title means a lot to you because you want women to do that. I mean, that's what this is all about. This isn't just about you and telling stories. There's a real message in this for you.
I think this is a book that transcends gender and it transcends politics and age. I feel like people look at me now and they see, you know, this pulled together newswoman, right? Hopefully, right? That's what you see, exactly. Right? Yeah. And what I want people to know is when I was younger, I was overweight, I had bad skin, I had a terrible tragedy in my family, my father died suddenly, and I was badly bullied for a period. Lots of things happened to me in my life that everyone in this room can probably relate to some extent. And I managed to change my life and succeed. So on paper, I was doing well. And I realized, notwithstanding the fact that on paper everything looked grand, I still wasn't happy. And it was a tough realization to make. And once I did, and I got honest with myself, as you would say, I got real, I realized I had to make some other tough decisions.
Well, so what triggered you to go from law to journalism? You talk about this on page 111 in your book, 111 and 112. You talk about you talk about going from law to journalism. What triggered you to do that?
Well, I mean, what happened was I was practicing law, and I practiced it for 9 years. There was one night I was driving home on the Kennedy Expressway in Chicago, right after I'd seen my friend Dr. Phil, and I started praying to have a car accident. It's not that I wanted to die. It's that I wanted to break a bone so I could have a rest. I was working 18-hour days for months and months on end. And I was too hard charging to actually just go in and say, I need a vacation. And honestly, just these events together convinced me I needed a change. And I had always been interested in broadcast journalism, so that was where I started to look.
Yeah, I want to read an excerpt from the book. This is in talking about the First Amendment in Chapter 17. You said, I believe in the right to offend, to insult, even to horrify. It's not that we're supposed to enjoy it, it's that we're supposed to allow it and then respond in a more persuasive voice. That's the bedrock of the First Amendment. The answer to speech you do not like is not less speech, it's more speech. So what do you mean by that?
Well, I, for one, hate this politically correct society that we found ourselves in.
Yeah.
My view on it is if you lead a life in which you are sheltered from any controversial thought or offensive thought, then how are you going to deal with the real world when you get out there and people say offensive things to you? And they don't all agree with you, and they may even horrify you or say you have blood coming out of your wherever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You can't expect that when you're doing a presidential debate. What led up to the televised clash with President-elect Donald Trump that we all saw? Because there was a lot that went on before this took place that nobody knows about. But you're getting ready to find out what it was when we come back.
I've never gotten into this, but there was a backstory. 4 days before the presidential debate, he called me up.
And later, were you sexually harassed by Roger Ailes?
He said he knew I must have some very sexy bras, and he'd like to see me in them.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil.
I was 11 years old.
Part of me knew that this was not the way that fathers love their daughters.
Her parents did the unthinkable.
The first time you were forced to do this, your mother videotapes this.
Yes. She would give me tips.
Teaching you how to French kiss your biological father.
Now, 20 years later, she confronts her mom.
How could you? Watch him do those things to me to participate, even.
I know I made poor choices.
My innocence was stolen from me.
In what parallel universe does a mother watch her daughter performing a sex act on her husband and her father?
That's tomorrow.
Welcome to the very first broadcast of the Kelly File, live from the heart of New York.
This group, ISIS, routinely kills civilians.
The Affordable Care Act.
That, because I'll tell you what's relevant to my viewers.
You sound like Osama bin Laden.
Well, I love breaking news. When I first started doing this job, I was scared to death of breaking news, and now actually it's the best part of what we do. Today I feel grateful. I worked very hard for everything I have. I really believe that you control your destiny.
So now I'm going to come on your show, and I want to know this. Are you going to try to make me cry? What's going to happen?
I am back with a remarkable and fascinating woman who is truly multidimensional. She's an attorney, a journalist, a mother, a wife, and an anchor. Host of the top-rated Fox cable news channel show, The Kelly File. Megyn Kelly can now add author to her credits because she's written her first book titled Settle for More, and it's in bookstores and online today. I have read it, I have studied it, and it is an interesting read. At the very first Republican presidential debate last August, the country watched as Megyn took Donald Trump to task for derogatory comments she said he made about women. Take a look.
Mr. Trump, you've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
For the record, it was well beyond Rosie O'Donnell.
Yes, I'm sure it was.
Your Twitter account has several disparaging comments about women's looks. You once told a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice it would be a pretty picture to see her on her knees.
I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct. I've been challenged by so many people, and I don't frankly have time for total political correctness. And to be honest with you, This country doesn't have time either. And frankly, what I say, and oftentimes it's fun, it's kidding, we have a good time, what I say is what I say. And honestly, Megyn, if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I've been very nice to you, although I could probably maybe not be based on the way you have treated me, but I wouldn't do that.
On page 235 in here, you start talking about what led up to that. So what went on between you and Trump leading up to that presidential debate?
So I tell the story for the first time. I've never gotten into this. But there was a backstory to that moment. Once he announced his candidacy for president, one of the stories that broke about him, and it was significant news in the lead up to that debate, so it was July of 2015, was that in his divorce proceeding from his first wife, Ivana, she had under oath accused him of raping her. And she later recanted that testimony, but the news broke that under oath she accused him of it. And basically people were just running with it. Now, I practiced law for 9 years. I don't know what happened between Donald and Ivana, but I know that in divorce proceedings, people often say things that are not true. So I had on the reporter on my show, and I challenged him about why he thought this was relevant and how he accounted for this reality that people do lie in divorce proceedings all the time in his reporting. Trump was not happy with that interview. He wasn't happy that I put the reporter on the show. And 4 days before the presidential debate, that has now become so well known and well seen, he called me up and threatened me and made very clear to me that he was extremely displeased. I told him flat out, Mr. Trump, I'm sorry you were unhappy, but you don't control the editorial on the Kelly file. And that was it. He started screaming at me. He hung up the phone. And the next time we met was that Thursday night. And I was in a position where I had to ask myself, what am I going to do? Because he's very angry. He's volatile. We've seen that already at this point in the election. And it's very likely that he'll come after me, because one thing I forgot to mention is in this phone conversation, he said, I almost unleashed my beautiful Twitter account against you, and I still might. And then the world saw what happened thereafter.
Well, you say 6 months before announcing his candidacy, he began reaching out to you, charming you, sending you personal notes. What was that all about?
You know, I now know that he did this with many reporters. At the time, I didn't know that. But he would send me little notes. The New York Times Magazine did an article about me, and he sent me a copy of the magazine article about me, signed Donald Trump, you know. And he would send the Christmas cards, you know, things like that.
Megyn's book also contains sought-after details about sexual harassment allegations about her former boss at Fox, Roger Ailes. Megyn reveals those details for the first time when we come back.
Trust me, this isn't pleasant for me to discuss. This was real. He did do this.
Give me an example. And later,
for Trump to come after me the way he did was unprecedented. The way he targeted me was meant to send a message. You come after me, I'll come after you.
One strikes during the show. That's next Wednesday.
Today at 5, the threat of coastal flooding has passed, but the storm isn't gone yet. Eric Fisher with a closer look at the tides and tracking a wet and slow evening commute. Then President-elect Trump pushing forward with his transition team, what role his children could play in the White House, and a crushing blow to Patriots Nation. Will Gronk be able to take the field this weekend at 5?
The fender bender.
You witnessed the accident?
Yes.
You want to tell me who's telling me the truth?
Next, Judge Judy.
Today at 4 on WBZ Channel 4.
It's amateur hour in America. Real estate investor wannabes making offers they can't back. Who gets burned? You. Homevestors, the We Buy Ugly Houses people, has bought more houses than anyone in America. Call us today at 800-44-BUYER or go to WeBuyUglyHouses.com.
What?
With Encore, everyone's in tune for dinner.
For tasting more, it's Encore.
It's just so different now. I can actually spend time with her. We can just take the afternoon, have some tea, go through old pictures. instead of pestering her about medications or worrying about how to get her to the doctor. Now that we have help with all that, we can just, you know, be mother and daughter again.
We can help. If your loved one is 65 or over and qualifies for Mass Health, call Senior Whole Health today.
You decide what you feed your family. Well, most of the time. Stonyfield, organic for all.
It's Empire Today's biggest sale, the 50-50-50 sale. 50% off carpet and flooring, 50% off padding and materials, and 50% off installation. That's right, half off your entire project. You can save thousands. Empire's 50-50-50 sale won't last long. Don't miss 50% off carpet and flooring, 50% off padding and materials, and 50% off installation.
800-588-2300 Empire.
Today. One day the house was Mom's. The next day, it was mine. After Mom passed, there was so much to deal with. Homevestors made it real easy. I got cash for the house and didn't lift a finger.
Call us today at 800-44-BUYER.
This is not something that we can ignore. It's like that sick, sinking feeling you get when you're walking down the street minding your own business and some guy yells out vulgar words about your body. Or when you see that guy at work that stands just a little too close, stares a little too long, and makes you feel uncomfortable in your own skin. And it doesn't matter what party you belong to, Democrat, Republican, Independent, no woman deserves to be treated this way. None of us deserves this kind of abuse. Because let's be very clear, strong men, men who are truly role models, don't need to put down women to make themselves feel powerful.
Well, that was outgoing First Lady Michelle Obama's remarks 2 months ago denouncing Donald Trump's lewd comments about women. My guest today, Megyn Kelly, is a well-known journalist, anchor of the top-rated TV show, The Kelly File, and is unfortunately no stranger to sexual harassment, which she discusses in her much-anticipated book, Settle for More. Take a look.
Fox News megastar Megyn Kelly is reportedly claiming she was sexually harassed by her boss at Fox News Channel 10 years ago. New York Magazine reports that Kelly is saying that Fox News Channel CEO Roger Ailes made unwanted sexual advances when she was a young correspondent at Fox.
Okay, let's talk about this. So you've been at Fox how long?
12 years.
12 years. Were you sexually harassed by Roger Ailes?
Yes.
Beginning when?
My problems with Roger began when I was at the company for 12 months. So I was a first-year reporter. And I was called up to New York. Britt Hume, my direct manager in the D.C. bureau, told me I had captured the attention of Mr. Ailes and told me he wanted to see me in New York. So I went up to New York. I was working in the Washington, D.C. bureau. And I went up there. I had met with him, I think, once before, you know, for my job interview. But this was a great moment for me because you want to capture the attention of your boss. Mm-hmm. And he gave me a bunch of advice. You know, I went into his office. He gave me a bunch of advice. But the problem with that meeting and with several that happened over the next 6 months was not only was there legitimate professional advice, but there were grossly inappropriate comments. He had always had an inappropriate sense of humor. You know, he is not PC. And this was actually something we liked about him. I mean, he'll crack a dirty joke or drop a swear, and so will I. I don't judge that. You know, I don't speak the Queen's English either, as you'll see in the book. I mean, just FYI. But this was something different. This was specific comments about my body, how he wanted to see me, and it grew more severe over time.
Like what was he? Give me an example.
Well, like he said, he knew I must have some very sexy bras, and he'd like to see me in them. In the book, I have details of what he did, not all of them, just some. I'm not looking to be salacious, and trust me, this isn't pleasant for me to discuss. But I want people to understand this was real. He did do this, and I was far from the only one. Let me make it clear for the record, I never did anything. I never compromised myself, and I never would.
And later,
you now have a contentious relationship with a man that is now arguably the most powerful man on the planet. So you went and retained a lawyer.
So I did a few things. After record, I reached out to other women at the company to see whether I could find anybody else. Whether was this an isolated incident with me, or was this just a guy looking to have an affair? I went to a supervisor, and I did report this. And I hired a lawyer to protect me.
Did you find other women that did have your experience?
I reached out to one female anchor I knew, and I asked her whether it ever happened to her. I didn't reveal that it had happened to me. The long story short is that this woman told me she'd only had a professional relationship with him. I avoided him for 6 months, and I worked my tail off. And I was in the D.C. Bureau, which helped me. I wasn't in New York where he was. And I broke a lot of huge news for Fox News. I was all over the channel covering Supreme Court confirmation hearings, covering the Duke Lacrosse rape case, which turned out to be a fake rape case. And I was earning my stripes. I almost didn't need him in a way at that time, just to show the world who I was. I had a boss in D.C. who was putting me on the air a lot. And I think by the time we got to late 2006, it was obvious that I had a strong future at Fox, and the executive team had an off-site meeting, and the one thing they all agreed on, I heard from more than one executive later, was to pair me with Bill Hemmer and give the two of us our own show called America's Newsroom. And as soon as they gave us that show, the ratings soared. It was a huge success in a time slot that had been very challenging, and I never looked back.
So all of this broke with Gretchen Carlson and others. How toxic was that environment?
You know, it wasn't a pleasant time for any of us. And I think that my colleagues at Fox were placed in a very difficult position because Roger was on his heels and ready to fight. So there was significant pressure on all of the women and some of the men to speak out on his behalf, to defend him, and to tell a story the way he wanted it told. It was very clear to me I was not going to lie. You know, when it had happened to me, I had brought it to the attention of management. I protected myself by getting a lawyer, and then I kept my ears open for the next 10 years, during which, for the record, he and I did have a professional relationship. He did not harass me. But when the investigation began after Gretchen's lawsuit, there was no way I was going to lie to protect him.
How did you feel when he left?
I think the Murdochs did the honorable thing in letting him go.
Tensions ran high right before the election, with polls that showed the majority of Americans felt the election circus caused stress in their lives. We'll talk about that after the break.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil, her father did the unthinkable.
The first time you were forced to do this, your mother videotaped this.
How could you watch him do those things to me?
That's tomorrow.
Right before the election, Democrats and Republicans had one thing in common, and that is stress. At one point, polls showed that 52% of adults felt that the 2016 election was a very or somewhat significant source of tension. Critics believed a lot of the pressure had to do in part with how the media covered the then presidential candidates. Now, today's guest, Megyn Kelly, is the popular host and anchor of Fox cable news channel's The Kelly File, and she is now the author of a new book, Settle for More. This election has been dubbed the race to the bottom. Do you think this has changed the landscape forever?
One thing that Trump has done in this election that nobody had ever done before was sort of break that wall between the candidates and the media. You know, we the media, are on the sidelines of the playing field. We're not one of the players.
Right.
And everyone has understood that until now. You know, for Trump to come after me the way he did was unprecedented in modern American politics. And I hope that that isn't a situation where the dam has been broken and now it's fair game and others feel free to do it. I fear it is. I think the way he targeted me was meant to send a message to other journalists out there. You come after me, I'll come after you. And I think that can lead to a change in coverage, right? That can endanger the way these reporters report the news. After that primary, when he came after you the way he did, and the months that went on after that, did that get to you? No, that was a piece of cake. Listen, I haven't talked about what it was like to be on the receiving end of Trump's attentions. So in this book, I finally discuss, you know, what it was like in Settle for More. I talk about how I tried to do that in the face of what was clearly an attempt at bullying me. But I would submit I wasn't in fact bullied, because bullying is pressuring someone or relentlessly targeting them in a way that affects their behavior. And I would submit to you he did not affect my behavior. And, you know, my husband and I have had a difficult year together. He and I have been in the bunker as the attacks have come in and the threats have come in, and, you know, our personal lives we're facing a lot of upheaval. We held steady at the helm. Well, this has been such an emotionally charged election. It's really been divisive. We've got a couple here today that's that way. Christy says this past election has affected her marriage for the worse. She reluctantly supported Hillary Clinton while her husband Lawrence supported Trump, and they're still fighting about it. This has you guys divided, right?
I don't know who this person is anymore. This is not the person that I thought would ever support someone like Trump. We get along on every other subject but this. So I get confused. I'm like, who is this guy? We're looking at the same thing, we're listening to the same thing, but we're coming up with two completely different opinions about it.
How long have y'all, are you married?
We are married. We've been together for almost 14 years.
14 years?
Yeah.
And you're asking, who is this guy?
Well, now...
If I get upset, I can't pick up the phone and call Megyn Kelly. I yell at my TV set.
All right, well, I'll give you her cell phone number before we leave here, and you can save this marriage here. They don't need Dr. Phil. They need you. You can heal their political divide. I think they're going to be fine because they both clearly have a great sense of humor, and that is the key to a happy marriage. This couple represents the strong divide in the country right now. We'll talk about that after the break.
Coming up, Megyn's satellite interview from Chicago days after her book was leaked.
There were rumors that your driver conspired with Trump to poison you before the first Republican debate last year.
We now return to an exclusive Dr. Phil interview with Megyn Kelly.
The previous segments with Megyn Kelly were taped in studio before last Tuesday's election. And as we all know, controversial Republican businessman Donald Trump is now President-elect of the United States of America. This result continues to divide the nation even more, with several protests and riots erupting in cities around the country. So, I invited Megyn back to get her thoughts on the obvious divide that's happening right now. So from the Fox Bureau in Chicago, welcome, Megyn Kelly. Good to have you back again. Great to be back here. I'm really curious, what are your thoughts about Donald Trump being elected the 45th President of the United States? Well, I think it's very good that the millions of Americans who have felt ignored and overlooked and like they didn't matter for so long finally feel heard and like they have a voice. But I also understand the other half. You know, you got 55+ million people who voted for Hillary Clinton and didn't just want Hillary in, but wanted to prevent Trump from getting in office because in part of the controversial things he has said about many, many groups of people. What do you think about these people in the streets that are protesting right now? Even if you don't respect the man, Donald Trump, you have to respect the office that he has won. I don't ever talk politics. I don't tell people how I vote or how I did vote. I don't think that it's my place to do that. But I will ask people to remember there's a huge difference between campaign rhetoric and actual governance.
I'm willing to wait and see, and I think other people should do the same.
Well, I couldn't agree more, and for those people that are protesting and marching, that's certainly the right to do in America, but do remember there are restrictions to those First Amendment rights. You cannot incite people to lawlessness. You cannot incite people to violence. You can't do things that terrorize or put other people in danger. So exercise your rights, but there's a difference between assertiveness and aggressiveness. Now, your book continues to make headlines during all the chaos in the country because there were rumors that your driver, who insisted on you drinking a cup of coffee, conspired with Trump to poison you on the eve before the first Republican debate last year.
The book opens with this dramatic story of the hours leading up to that debate and a perfectly fine me going over to the debate hall. The driver volunteered the cup of coffee. I drank it, and within moments, I did get sick. And so there's no somebody poisoned me. What I found out after the fact was that a stomach virus was going around, and I later found out that Rand Paul had been vomiting all day, too. So he and I, you know, had likely the same thing happen to us.
All right. Well, there were reports that stated Trump called Fox executives to complain about the first debate question being very pointed. How do you feel about the rumor that Fox Network fed questions to Trump in advance?
That is a complete bastardization of what I've written in the book. And once again, I believe that's from critics who are trying to disparage Fox News. Trump believed that I was going to have a very pointed first debate question for him at the debate. And he's right. I did have a very pointed first debate question for him, and it was the woman question. Trump had no idea what my first debate question was going to be, and he spent the next 9 months railing about that question. Trust me when I tell you, I have zero reason to believe that Trump knew what that question was. But our detractors have run with this saying, Fox leaked the question to Trump, and that is 100% false.
This time last week, you had a contentious relationship with what many people would describe as a loudmouth reality star running for president. You now have a contentious relationship with a man that is now arguably the most powerful man on the planet as the President of the United States. How does that change the dynamic in your eyes with regard to your relationship with Donald Trump?
Well, I don't think I did have a contentious relationship with him. I feel that Trump and I had moved past that after I met him at Trump Tower and did the long sit down with him. And I have a good relationship with his children, with his wife. And so he and I think, you know, we're not tight, but I don't think we do have a problem with one another.
What do you think your position will be as a journalist during the Trump administration? Do you think you will have access? He did his first interview, which aired just 48 hours ago on 60 Minutes. Do you think you will have access to him at the White House?
I think so. And even before he became president-elect, I'll put it this way, I was getting very positive signs out of Team Trump that that could and would happen.
All right. Megyn's boss, former CEO Roger Ailes, has denied Megyn's allegations of sexual harassment. So what does Megyn think about that? Well, we're going to find out next. Want to know what's coming up on Dr. Phil? Visit our website and subscribe to our email newsletter. You'll get weekly updates, life strategies, and exclusive video that you won't find anywhere else.
Plus, on drphil.com, you can see sneak previews of upcoming shows. Log on today.
We now return to an exclusive Dr. Phil interview with Megyn Kelly.
Well, it's been reported that Roger Ailes denied your allegations of sexual harassment and that he accused you of being a liar. So what do you have to say about that?
Only this. only one of us has any reason to lie about that account. And I think the viewers are smart enough to figure out who it is.
Well, Ailes' attorney made a statement on his behalf, quoting you as saying 1 year ago, quote, "I really care about Roger, and he has been nothing but good to me, and he's been very loyal. He's had my back, and he's looked out for me." So what are your thoughts about that statement?
I did come to care about Roger, and was always sure to mention it publicly because it was very clear that that's what Roger wanted me and others to do. I mean, it was part of the deal that whenever you had a public appearance, you were expected to say nice things about the boss. And it wasn't until Gretchen filed her lawsuit and I saw the allegations that came out later that day from others that I started to realize something was very, very wrong here. And he might actually be what I had suspected in the first place. And that put me in a very difficult position. It's a scary situation, and most women who get sexually harassed don't want to make a huge deal out of it. They just want it to stop.
Right. All right. Well, this book comes out today, and this is a page turner. So I want to tell everybody to go out right now and buy Megyn Kelly's book, Settle for More. There are lots more revelations in there, and she tells it like it is. You will not be disappointed, I promise you. So, Megyn, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to talk about, clear up, set the record straight on before we say goodbye?
The only thing I would say to your audience is just bear this in mind when people are writing up stories about the book, especially those who haven't read it. Some people do have an agenda when it comes to Fox News and Fox News personalities, so I would encourage people to read the book for themselves and draw their own conclusions.
All right. Megyn, thank you so much for taking time for this update. The book is in stores right now. Megyn, thanks.
All the best. Thank you.
Right. I want to take a personal moment to just talk about what I think we as a country need right now. I think it's really a time for all people to really come together peacefully and give this newly elected president a chance to govern. I would say that if we were talking about Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. Look, what makes America the best country in the world is that we have a democracy that usually works very well and allows citizens to hold politicians accountable. It's been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others. Winston Churchill quoted that in the House of Commons in 1947. We need to keep an open mind, but also a very watchful eye in the next few months, and let's continue to make this country that is already the best even better. I'd like to thank all of my guests today, and a very special thanks to my good friend, Megyn Kelly. Settle for More is in bookstores and online today. And if you'd like to see more of my interview with Megyn, go to drphil.com to see exclusive moments that were not on the show today. We'll see you next time.